Thank you so much, Tanya. It is such a pleasure to be here with everybody again today. And as per the special request last week, I will be playing some Chopin music from time to time. You may be able to hear it quietly in the background. But I will turn that up in a little while when I really get into some painting. So I wanted to quickly recap from last week what we did, because I wasn't really able to show you with my setup. The first thing I did was, with the original image, I added sky on to make it a square image, just to give me more room to kind of splash around in up there. I did some quick HDR toning, which increased the saturation and pumped up the contrast a little bit, and then I took it into Painter. And I love this image. It inspired me, made me think about Cézanne. So as I was doing my creative thinking at the beginning, I was interested in coming up with some color inspirations that I could use. And so I opened up a couple of things to just sort of surround myself with colors that I will perhaps use for sampling, perhaps use a little cloning, and mostly use to look at and be inspired by. And I'll talk to you about all of that as we go along. The first thing that I did was load in a Cézanne image into the mixer pad up here. And if anybody wants me to show how I did that, I'd be happy to do that in a bit. The other item that I put in here is a color set library that is called the Cézanne Mix. And this is from Jeremy's extras from Paintbox TV. And you can actually create your own color set libraries very easily as well. And then last but not least, one of my new favorite things, one of my top 3 new favorite things in X3 is the reference panel, which is over here. You can see in the lower right-hand corner. And this is an image, another Cézanne, because we can't get enough Cézanne here. And it's just loaded in. And one of the differences I'll just quickly touch on here between using the reference image and, say, the clone source panel, which is my next big topic, is that you can't actually clone from the reference image. It's really there just for you to look at and to sample using the eyedropper, and it automatically goes to eyedropper whenever you hover over it, which I think is very cool. So just as an example, I'll take some of this color right from his hand, and you see that it changed in the color mixer, and you can put that right in depending on what your brush is. Oh, I've got an oil there. All right, so let me show you too. The clone source panel is my new absolute favorite thing because it does a number of things. It allows me to look at the original image, which is really important for me to have for a couple of reasons. One is that you can see how I started painting on this image. It's very kind of, it's very sketchy, and I've really roughed things up. I worked, as a matter of fact, using a lot of a brush called Den's Funky Chunky with color variability, and you can see in this clone source that this was the first kind of go around to just get things all abstracted and take the grain out of the photo and get a little bit of excitement going on. And I was adding color all the time. I didn't use clone color. I try to avoid clone color in general where possible. That's not to say I don't use cloning as part of my workflow, and I'll show you that in a bit. So, and here's another version, another variation a little bit farther along. So what I love is I can go click, original image, click, an early saved version, an even farther along version, and of course I could put my current image in if I wanted to use that. And then after last week I thought, I'm going to add something else in. And this is actually one of my own paintings, which was done as an analog, I call it, oil painting. I worked on this at the De Young Museum, in fact, and it's a zoomed-in detail of one of my paintings inspired by Debussy, and it's actually sort of it's almost a sample, so to speak, of my own artwork, because I took a close-up image and then I actually flipped it to fit with what I might be wanting to use it for in this particular image. So, so those are the things I have in the clone source panel. And I wanted to just pretty much get going and doing some more painting. Let me reflect a little bit on what I have here. There are things about it that I like a lot. I think I've kind of jazzed it up a bit. I certainly added color, but I'm also thinking it needs a combination of first of all, moving it forward a bit. There are some things that need to come out, and this is how when I work looking at my paintings, I often, give myself a critique as I work, and I will, decide what it is that really needs attention as I go. So let me
Peggy,
just go ahead. Yes.
Carrie is wondering how you were able to get your original painting in there. Was it just a photograph that you took?
Yes, I took a photo of the painting, and let me also show you technically how you can acquire any image to put into the clone source panel. And before I do that, I should also tell you that the important thing when you're using something, if I were, for instance, going to clone this section and put that in my painting, or this section, I want it to be exactly the same size. So I went into Photoshop, you can also do it in Painter, and I sized this Debussy section that I took a photo, it's a photo from my painting, to be exactly the same size as this image. It just makes it a lot easier as you go along. You don't really have to think about, what's in what section. And so, yeah, that's really how I did it. The way you can put a clone source in, and maybe I'll pick another one to put in just for the fun of it, is you go to the bottom of the clone source panel, to this little window here, you click Open Source, and you go to your files. I'm already there. And I'm going to search for another one that I put in, which was Diebenkorn. Richard Diebenkorn is a famous modernist painter. They just had a marvelous show of his at the De Young, and this is a pretty nice one. And I should say that the intent here is not to copy Diebenkorn. I'm not going to take sections of Diebenkorn's work and stick it into mine. It's really to have it there, for instance, to sample color from. I can use the dropper, and I can get some of that particular orange that's there, or that particular green. And I think one of the nicest ways to use these images as references and sources is, especially for landscapes, is they have beautiful, beautiful greens, and it's a lot easier to come up with kind of natural colors, or just colors that I like, frankly, from one of these images than it is maybe to search around here in the color picker, which is great, but there's so many thousands of possibilities over here. It's nice to have some options here. And then you can adjust it. Say, well, I like that, but I want it darker. Or I like this blue, but I want it lighter. Yeah, so were there any other questions about that?
No, that was great, and you also addressed the second question, yeah, which was multiple clone sources.
Excellent.
So, yep, perfect. Thank you.
So technically, sure, what we have here is multiple clone sources. I'm not going to use them all as clone sources, but they're there if I need them. And the reason I have all this stuff out here is it's kind of an analog to my own studio. I have things out that I can see because I want to get a little bit wild here, and I'm going to do that in a minute. But I also want to be able to come back to the original source if I get lost. And having those images there allows me to range a little bit wildly. So I'm going to turn on the Chopin, and we're going to start painting. Hope you all can hear that. So I'm going to pick some of my favorite brushes to start with, which is a real dry flat. I'll get some color from the mixer panel there. And what I do is I look around the image. I'm looking for areas where I can resonate color. I'm looking back at the original image. I'm looking at my one that I'm currently working on. And I save versions frequently. You never know when you might do something really cool by accident, and you want to make sure you keep it. Or something really cool on purpose. I'm going to go here to my own image because I feel like I want to get some of that nice blue right there. And let's see what we've got coming in there. Whoop, that wasn't it at all. I've got to hit clone color. There we go. I'm finding I'm having a little bit of latency here, so I'm going to decide that isn't working so well. And I'm just going to go with a regular sort of, let's try this one. This is a nice one. And I'm just figuring this out as I go along here. Putting my original image back. Yeah, that's a bit better. And I'm just kind of moving around, trying different things in different places.
I did forget to mention one thing at the beginning. So while you're painting there, I'll just remind everybody you are more than welcome to go download the inspiration image, and if you paint and post to Facebook, we are actually going to be announcing a random winner on Friday. So we'll be giving away, Karen Bonaker was kind enough to offer a Digital Art Academy class of your choice, and also we will be giving away Corel Painter X3. So you still have a couple days to find inspiration from our masters here today and then go and paint your image and post it.
Thank you for that reminder, Tanya. I wanted to point out that one of the things I did since the last visit is down here in the color set library. You see a new addition to my colors. It's called, I called it Saison Mont Saint-Victoire, and it's actually a color set that I captured from this image that's in the mixer pad. Let me just show you how I did that. So when you do, first of all, to get the image in there to begin with, you want to click Open Mixer Pad. You can pick any image that you like. We'll try another Saison landscape, for example. And then you go New Color Set from Mixer Pad. And this is different. I don't remember which Saison that is, so we're going to call it Saison New. And here's the cool thing. You can choose the number of colors that you want to have. If you want just a few, you'd make it a low number. If you want lots and lots of little subsets, you can make a higher number. That's about right. And then it'll appear at the very bottom. Gotta wait a second. Just turn down Mr. Rubenstein. Sorry, little latency. There we go. And we should see, with any luck, there's the new color set library right there. So some beautiful subtle colors from this new image that I loaded into the mixer pad. And let's see what we can do with that. Any other questions as I go on?
Not at the moment, but if you have them, please enter them into the questions panel for me. Carrie is saying, love to watch you paint, Peggy.
Oh, great. Well, we'll try to make it something to watch here. Oh,
Tater likes it too.
Is that a critique?
No, that was.
I'll take that as a good thing. So I'm using a wonderful brush that Jeremy created, and like many of his brushes, it's got a great name. It's called Jeremy's Oily Watery, and it actually makes wonderful little sort of color dots that look like little splashes. And you can just really get some lovely, organic, juicy, sort of damp effects here. Let me just try another brush. Somebody had asked me about the Smeary palette knife, I believe, the other day. Let me just see. We can do a little bit of smoothing out of some of this excitement here.
There's an interesting question from Thomas, and I'm not actually sure if this is possible, but he's wondering if there's a way to arrange and lock colors in the library so that you can categorize by saturation or hue.
That is out of my bandwidth.
You could create your own color set from that set that you have here, but as far as being able to arrange them, I'm not certain. So that's one that I'll have to look into for you, Thomas. So I'll follow up with that.
Chances are there is a way. The question is how. You know what? I'm going to go back to this image here and get some of this. Are we enjoying the Chopin, or should we switch to something more vigorous like Debussy?
No, I think it's nice. You have about a minute left, just to give you a warning.
Thank you. So I'm using the Smeary palette knife, which is a really cool brush because it, well, it's a knife. It behaves very much like a real-world palette knife, meaning that you can pull paint and sort of carve with it. You can see that nice edge. I'm going to switch to my art pen and see if I can get some rotation. Well, I'm not getting rotation. We'll go back to the regular one. And it also adds color, which is kind of cool, as if you picked up a little bit from your palette in the analog paint world. And as you can see, it takes quite a while to really get somewhere with these paintings, and you have to be patient, and you know, it's a good idea to just give yourself plenty of time so you can really develop things. It doesn't happen instantly. It doesn't happen with the push of a button. It's really just a long and lovely process. And I don't know if you all can see, but I am pretty much rapidly moving between either a color within one of the color sets, or I'll go to the color wheel, for instance. I'm searching my picture as I'm working on it, looking for things that need attention. This is a real dry flat, by the way, and I really love it.
Whenever you're ready to pass over to Karen, we can do that, Peggy.
Sounds great. Well, I will say goodbye for now, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to let me know. And thanks.
Which Wacom tablet are you using, Peggy?
I've got the Intuos 5 Medium that has the touch strip, and it's all customized and set up so I can kind of use it like piano keys and just choose, you know, if I need the grabber hand, I can go like that, and it's really handy.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. Not a Cintiq, it's just a regular old magical one.
So I'll go ahead and switch it over to Karen now. Thanks so much, Peggy.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, guys, wanted to thank you so much again for letting me take part in this. It's just been a really lot of fun, and great seeing what Peggy has done with her image, and this is kind of where I've come with mine. I wanted to talk a little bit about mood in paintings and the importance of mood, because even those basic compositional problems can be overlooked when the painting has lots of atmosphere and lots of mood. So some of those things that come into play, of course, are color, your tonality, and how you develop your painting from that point on. At this point, I decided that it's probably time for me to do away with my sketch. So I'm going to delete that from my layer panel. And the other thing is that you'll notice now that my reference image is no longer open. And it's time for me to let it go. And now it's time for me to basically work with the poetry of the painting and what I actually take from it now and see from it and develop it going forward. One of the things that I talked about last week was my love for texture, and it is an area that I really enjoy working with, and I'll incorporate texture from either my traditional overlays or textures that I create in Painter, which is just hours and hours of fun to create textures in Painter. And one of the things that I try to work on, and especially with a landscape painting such as this, is that my middle ground area and my foreground can afford to have that texture there. Whereas when I get back in the background, when we start dealing with some of the basic traditional terms like atmospheric perspective, things will tend to get grayer, they'll tend to be less detailed. So we can really get away with you know, lighter values and our darker values in the foreground and middle ground. So you can see that I've added, you know, the feeling of maybe a little sun going down, some birds up in the sky, and we've added a few old tree trunks that have maybe broken down across this little forested area here. And you can also see that I went a totally different direction with this and actually added mists and a waterfall going over the top of the rocks here. So a lot of times, like I say, this may not be perspective-wise how it would be, even dealing with this type of waterfall, but you know, it was something that just happened and started to appear, and from that point on I took off with it. I'm going to go down now to my canvas layer, and I'm going to duplicate my canvas layer. And this is something that a lot of you have asked about in the past, about duplicating your canvas layer and working with some of those brushes that may not work on blank layers. So this is one of the ways you can get around doing that. So first of all, we're going to choose Command A or Control A, or come up to your menu and choose Select All. And we're going to come over to our Layer Adjuster tool and toggle that. And then on the PC, I'm going to select my Alt key, and you're going to see a little kind of an arrow effect show. And I'm just going to tap on it. And at that point, it creates a duplicate of my canvas, and I'll just drag it back down so it's directly above my canvas layer. Now at this point, what I can do is I can actually continue to paint on this layer and develop this layer as a non-destructive layer, meaning that if I mess up on it or something doesn't work out, I can simply delete it and start over again. So it takes away a little bit of that anxiety or a little bit of that pressure that you might have where you would be working entirely on the canvas layer. The other thing that I've added here is a paper texture, and this paper texture is actually added from a pattern. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to my pattern libraries and pull these out here so I can get this. Let's see, patterns, and we'll open up our patterns, and as I move this over here, you can see that I've got quite a library of patterns, from paper textures to pattern pens and so on. For this one, I happen to pick the Saunders Waterford, and this is a watercolor texture. I added a new layer, and I chose the Fill command, and we can do that by either, I love shortcut keys, so I'm going to select Control F or Command F, and I'm going to select Pattern, and at that point I can just go ahead and fill that layer with a pattern. Now one thing I wanted to point out here is that if you have your clone source image open and you're working on a clone source, make sure that you go from image to current pattern, and that way you'll be able to fill that, because otherwise when you actually choose that option, what happens is you'll actually not see pattern there, and you'll see weave and color and whatnot, but you won't see pattern. So if that happens to you, make sure that you bring up your clone source panel and get that checked. So so that's available to you. Okay. The next thing I did here is, and I want to, this is one of the things I love working with Painter, is adding a new layer, and we're going to go over to a brush that's called Digital Square Pool Blender. And this brush, I've gone ahead, added a layer, and the blend mode composite method is multiply. And on that layer, I can come in here and I can develop some of this negative space that I think I still need to develop in the painting. And as I go over this, it actually picks up and kind of blends those underlying colors. So it makes it a nice, nice brush to work with for adding additional value changes within your image. Like over here, if I wanted to deepen and darken the sides of these cliffs a little bit, I could definitely do that. Go into these crevices a little bit and just build up that area somewhat. And then when I'm finished with that, and I don't feel I'll probably go into that and work any further in it, I'll simply drop that to the canvas layer, and I've got my nice you know, areas of worked out, and I can continue on. Now when we talk about mood, I went ahead and added a sky, and I'm going to bring that in here as well. And I painted this using a brush called Just Paint, and it's a actual derivative of some of Tim Shelburn's wonderful Schmidt brushes. So I just worked on that and changed a couple of little aspects in it, but use that to develop you know, these beautiful clouds up in the sky, and to just further that feeling of atmospheric conditions in the painting. Okay. Now the other thing that I worked on a little bit is, and something that I'll often work with when I'm completing or getting to the end of a painting process, is to work on darkening the edges up a little bit. There is a zone in traditional painting that we tend to keep the corners from corner to corner a little bit darker and less detail, less texture in those areas, to keep the eye focused on that area of interest, or that focal area. And a nice way of getting this done is picking up the digital airbrush and working with a nice big brush, and then picking up one of your darker values where, you know, look at your painting, take a look at what the you know, what the color hierarchy is. So if you're working with warmer values that tend to be more on the rusty golds and rust values, or more blues, then you're going to want to maybe choose a color closer to that. So for this, I think I'm going to pick up something in this area. I'm going to change that blend mode to multiply, and I'm just going to swing it and soften it. Just take it right around these edges of the painting. And what this does in effect as well is creates what we call a gradient plane, and it's a way of showing different values, different gradients from light to dark within the painting. So I'll tend to get those darker values over here on these edges and those corners, and it will help to soften up some of the texture that may be a little bit overboard in certain areas as well. And then I'll go ahead and lock that because I don't want to paint on it, and we'll just keep it as it is. The next thing I'd like to show you is applying an overlay for the final steps in the painting. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back to my layer 6 here, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that now to the canvas layer. And I'm going to pick up a brush, and I wanted to mention this to Tanya, that I will have this brush available for everybody. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick out a few of my favorites that I enjoy working with. And I'll go ahead and post those on Karen Bonaker Art, so you'll have those. And I'll let, those should be up there sometime this afternoon, so I'll have them up there for you. And I'm going to go ahead and use this brush called Abstract Trees. It's a digital watercolor brush. It's set to, you know, so it's a brush that you can basically use on any layer. And I'm just going to go ahead and work into this area of the trees just a little bit further to enhance and give a little more contrast up here. And you can see that I'm using a darker value as well. And I love this one because it kind of has a real interesting little Zen appeal to it, to me. It's just kind of one of those really fun brushes to work with. And we'll just kind of go into this area a little bit. And maybe go right up to the top here. And I can see that that sky needs to be dropped. So I'm going to drop that right now so I can go over that area and develop that tree just a little bit more. So we end up with something like that. Go a little bit bigger. And maybe enhance some of these colors just a bit.
That's absolutely gorgeous, Karen.
Thank you. It's been a process, I'll tell you.
It is amazing.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about this overlay method here. And what I want to show you here is one of the ways that you can continue to build your atmosphere in a painting. I've got two overlays, and you can see now as I start to open up the layers what they actually do to the final painting. And what I want to show you is actually how I develop these overlays to change the colors within this texture overlay to work with the final painting. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to minimize this one, and I'm going to bring up a beautiful little Sargent painting and another landscape painting that I've been working on. And we're going to take a look at using the panel, and let me close some of these goodies here so they're out of the way. We're going to go to the Underpainting panel, if I can find it here. Here we go. And I use this quite often because I just find it to be just a real powerful tool in Painter to use to adjust my colors. Not only in the photo enhancements that you have here, but in something called Color Scheme. And this is a wonderful little tool to use. I'm going to first of all make sure that I have my Fall Equinox painting selected. And I know that I've got landscape open, this little Sargent landscape. And I'm going to open up the color scheme and come down to landscape and select it. Now, at that point, when I do that, here's where the fun begins. I can now, you notice that it's completely changed the tonal value of the painting to something totally different. It reads you know, more like almost like a morning scene than it does an evening scene now. But here's where I can have some fun going in and working with some of the contrast settings, saturation settings, and the value settings. So now if I wanted to get back to that look of a sunset, I can continue to work with, say, the value setting here, and now I'm back to that really dramatic look again of the sky, the blue sky, and the background. And it doesn't stop there, because you can continue to play with it by even working with the hue settings. So there's even more you can do with it. And once you have done this, it's another opportunity for you to use an image such as this in your clone source, or using it as a clone source in your clone source panel. So it's another great little trick that works, that you can really create some great tonal changes within your image. So when we go back to our original here, our Paint Jam image, you can see that this is exactly what I did with this overlay on each layer. I just started out with one. I used the place command, file place, brought it in, and then I brought the texture in as a just opened it, file open, and then used it as a color scheme here, and changed. Actually, I'm sorry, I used the Sargent image to create those changes within this within the image. So I was able to actually make these wonderful color changes to these overlays that I brought in. And because, again, they're on a layer, it gives you that wonderful flexibility of being able to work with the opacity, to go on to work with layer composite methods, and you'll notice here that the composite methods are set to overlay. And at that point, you know, I can go on and continue the painting. But, you know, when do you stop? You know, when is your painting finished? And, you know, I hear this a lot from students. You know, there's always that feeling of getting things overworked, or overworking a painting to the point where there's no return. And I think I'm getting to that point in this one, where I feel there's enough information. I feel that the mood is established in the painting, and I'm able to call it a wrap, so to speak. So with that, Tanya, I think I'm finished my presentation.
I think that painting is absolutely complete, and you'll see all the people that are saying how beautiful it is, and they really appreciated the tips that you offered. So I can't believe you're offering brushes too. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close down the session for today. Once again, Peggy and Karen, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to everybody who comes and joins us weekly. Please continue to do so in the future, because we'll have exciting stuff for you. So have a great day, and we hope to see you next time.